buddy. This plant right here, I planted to hopefully outcompete these, but it did not work since these just completely overgrew the environment, as this leaf is the size of my hand. I planted 2 of those, one there and one over there. That one did the best, but this one is trying to make a comeback. Though now, there are roly-polies everywhere. Ever since they added a few more in, we just started taking over. Like on this moss. There's roly-poly, there's a slug, there's down there somewhere a snail. They're hiding in all the foliage. It's just like a jungle in here when all the plants try to outcompete each other whenever there is a space of light. The slugs are the only thing that eats these plants when they're growing. I put duckweed here where all the other plants are. Since then I put these here, I hope they'll eventually start decomposing, which will add nutrients in there and take it out of my other environment, the fish one over there, since there is too much nutrients in there, and if I take the duckweed out of there, it'll help it. There are lots of flowering plants like this purple plant, but I hope it will produce seeds, which will fall down here to where that roly-poly is, around there. And then it'll grow into more of these, hopefully. And then, like this one, is in full bloom. It doesn't produce many flowers, but it produces tons of seeds, hoping it can multiply. This one has already bloomed, which means it's going to be producing a bunch of seeds to grow. And there's some grass growing along with these plants. I thought this plant was going to die, but ever since I planted it in here, it just started turning green again and growing everywhere. As these plants, I just started with one little plant of 3 leaves that were about this size, but then it just took over. There's another one of those purple flowers that is young. There's a baby roly-poly right there, so adorable, with all growing in this vine which I planted. With the any leaves you see, like that right there, are the original leaves. That's how many leaves are on there. There was about 5. Now it's just covered in green, growing in the soil. Hopefully, this will blanket the bottom of it, really taking all light that reaches the bottom and turning it into food for all the other animals, while the other plants absorb the higher light. Right, so this will take the last bit of light, while all these other plants will take the higher light. So whenever one of these leaves die, it'll give it a bunch of light while the rest of the plants are trying to grow. And there's so many plants in here. Way more biodiverse than my original ecosystem. But the problem is some plants just dominate compared to the rest of them. Which is okay, as long as the other plants can survive. Because, like, if this plant starts to take over, I usually just cut some of the bigger leaves off, or trim some of the smaller leaves from growing. Mainly over this section where all the other plants are trying to survive, which helps them grow more and hopefully can compete with this plant. Well, I'm pretty sure this plant can compete with it. That vine would have trouble along with this plant. While the purple plant can grow pretty tall and outcompete most of this plant, it still isn't tall enough to reach its highest leaves, but there's only a few of these extremely tall leaves, which are usually the biggest one. Here's the purple plant, a smaller one. I don't know what plant leaf that belongs to, but it's one of the plants around here. This is the entire ecosystem from the back the animals just tend to love moss, but the problem is they love it so much that they end up killing it. Like there is a moss that's growing somewhere under there. That's managed only it is only a small piece of moss. That's the problem. Right there I dump all the extra duckweed from my fish environment since it takes out of the nutrients from there. Since there's not many plants that need it, it'll just sit in the water, causing algae to grow, which gives it to here, which needs a ton of nutrients because all the plants trying to grow. And because you'll see as that nutrient slowly seeps in the water, which gets absorbed by these plants, which when it dries out a little bit, they die on the shore, giving it nutrients back into the soil. And if they die in the water because old age, all these daffia get it. Which then I feed it to the fish, which then turns it into nutrients for the duckweed to eat, which then I scoop up all that duckweed and dump it back in here, making it a repeating cycle. Then insects like roly-polies and other plants will eat all these other plants. Just to show you the true size of the daffia, this is my finger. That's one of the daffia, and that's one of the duckweed. Shows how tiny these animals truly are. But the fish love them as food. And like as you see, there's a dead piece of plant matter decaying, and they're all on top of it. Because I cut up one of these plants to give it to the daffia in here, and there was leaves everywhere, and now I only see a couple pieces left that aren't being pretty much absorbed by the daffia. And this is it from the other side. I used to have crickets in here. I did hear one a few weeks ago, but I never found them. Hopefully I can get crickets to stay alive in here. Because these plants actually don't stay in the soil. They actually go above the soil, which lets them get up to the light and their roots just hang down. But the problem with that is it risks their roots for animals like roly-polies eating them, killing the entire plant. Luckily that hasn't happened yet, but it could happen. And as you see, some are decaying into the soil, the plants over here, which then gets absorbed by the duckweed. Here's the flowers from the one plant. And it's doing great. If it continues like this over summer, I'll be able to have more animals. And unlike this year, hopefully, I can have centipedes and they won't die like the one accidentally drowned. I did add a grasshopper in here, but the first thing he does is jump in the water and drowns. Yeah, the plants. Bye, everybody.